welcome and welcome back to Born to Ferment, which is a podcast based on fermentation conducted by myself, Massimo Zitti. And today I have the honor to have Mr. Flavio Sasso, a person that actually going to tell you a little story immediately about this. When he contacted me and say, I would like to be part of your podcast, I actually shivered because I'm a huge fan of him, and he didn't even know a part that I told him last week. Last week we had a kind of an hour catch up, and we spoke about a lot of things actually, and actually make my interest to this person and to his program, which is phenomenal. Like I'm even more a fan than before. Flavio, good afternoon in Italy, good kind of morning here in Canada. How you
Yeah,
doing?
good afternoon for me, good morning for you.
It's the beauty of the world. We got different times, but we all here for the same reason, which is fermentation. So, Mr. Fermentalista, man, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even say anything during this podcast because that's all
No,
yours.
no, 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 no. We had a nice chat already in times before. So actually, it's always about talking about something together. It's not giving a lesson or a course. That would not be nice. It's I prefer to talk with people rather than two people. So
Same.
that's the cool thing about fermentation, that it gives the opportunity to create a sort of community between people that are huge fans of ferments. We build community like our common person I think we like a lot, that is on Instagram, our cook quest, Rich Shi, this author of Koji Alchemy. He's always saying Koji builds community and fermentation builds community, and I think
Absolutely.
that's the truth. That we're kind of from the microbes that tend to create communities. We working on them, we actually tend to build communities ourselves.
And
So
I couldn't agree more. And since it's so funny because since last week talked to you, first and foremost, thank you so much for the kombucha tips. My kombucha, my kombucha now it's phenomenal.
it's better, getting better.
It's amazing. What I did basically feed half of the sugar and I increase a quarter of the water. So
So
basically,
you,
that's starvation for. Actually, we spoke 2 weeks ago. That's for starvation of the first week. Made an incredible kombucha that we actually sold at the bar last weekend. And
cool,
you
cool.
know what? When you taste something, you're like, wow. Young mothers, so big bubbles, nice, refreshing on its own, even without any other infusions. We did infusion with other things, but even without infusion, when I taste, it's like, oh my god, this is amazing. I got a little present here for you that people can see. Um,
Yeah, show me.
there we
Yeah.
go. There we go. That's
Probably not that.
others. That's others. That's others. It's not the main one, but that's a little one that just
Yeah,
I want
the
to share
backup.
the
Yeah.
backup. So basically, for everybody's listening to like Flavio, you got to listen to this guy. I did, and it worked. So Flavio, man, how did you get into fermentation? Why you are the fermentalistas? Please
Why? Yeah.
tell us a lot.
No, I got in fermentation because of I was very lucky because my parents were traveling a lot around the world for work, for job. So we did 2 years here, 2 years in China, 2 years in Africa, 2 years in London, and I was a child, I was a kid, so I was getting used to strong flavors and things like that were quite interesting from my point of view as a child, because I wasn't used when I went back to Italy. It wasn't for me everything standard, like if you grow up all the time in the same place. That's why it's very important to travel, to see cultures, to understand the difference in the biodiversity of cultures in the world. So I grew up tasting flavors and things like that. Then I started working. I did my studies as biologist. I did PhD in biodiversity and evolution. So I was kind of studying ecosystems, natural ecosystems. And then I decided to go back to what was my also other passion, food and beverage. That because I was both working in the cocktail bars and restaurants and so on while I was doing university. So I did both. It was kind of
Beautiful.
multiple lives in at the same time, and then I used my biologist background just to start creating a little bit of information in Italy about fermentation and fermented food, with trying to giving a strong background about from a biological point of view, so giving
Which
right information and so on. And this is how it started in 2000, 4 years, 5 years ago, the
which
fermentation
at the time
project.
fermentation in Italy, was it something? Was it something coming up? Was it something that
No. It was something very, very, actually, very few people were talking about. And one of the most problems for me was finding people to talk with about fermentation and fermented food. And the kind of information I was taking up around, what I wasn't actually so satisfied about it, because I was seeing a lot of lacks on from the biological point of view. There was no scientific background
Of
on the
course.
thing. It was a bit of myth,
Do you
there
think? Do
were
you
a
think?
lot
Do you
of
think
myths.
that kind of unknown zone of people not knowing about fermentation is just because that's such a not a popular thing in the Western countries that even even people that they should study about it, they actually don't put so much effort into it.
No, because we come from 50 years of industrialized food, hyper processed food. So we come from a strong policy on the communication policy that everything that is a microbe is dangerous for us. And then uh, at a certain point, 2014, 2015, with the Human Microbiome Project, the scientific community started to say, you know what? We're not human beings. We're ecosystems. We're super organisms. We're part of an ecosystem, a marching, walking ecosystem that is made 90% by microbes and 10% humans. So we were like, we're missing a part.
Absolutely.
We missed a part. So how could you enrich your ecosystem that you are actually by through actually eating ecosystems that are fermented foods, raw,
Absolutely.
unpasteurized fermented foods. So from one day to the other, we started giving up pasteurization, food industrialization, and things like that, to go back to tradition. And that was the cool thing, because we went all the way around to globalization and then go
Absolutely.
back to local. So
And
that's a
I do think, this is a normal journey that a lot of societies do. They arrive, they discovered something that could be mass production, or you can create a mass production on top of that. But after, when actually everything is being produced, and you see that this production could be dangerous, right? It's not such an healthy production, and a lot of problems that Western
yeah,
people have is, for instance, the
we
diet or
exactly
whatever we eat. It's not as secure as it should be, right?
exactly. Now we understand that what we eat, the food, does not only nourish us. It's not we put inside something to just to eat, but actually it's something that is living and is part of our living being. So it's a bit
Of course.
complicated to give it simply, but actually we're not giving fuel, to our organism, but actually we are simply enriching an ecosystem with living food. So if we abandon the living part of the food, the fermented foods, actually what we do, we have a very poor ecosystem. And this is why we have the 21st century chronic disease that are the diabetes and obesity and all the problems that are linked with being a bit overweight and inflammation and so on. We know that.
And
We
there's
know that
also,
very well.
I will add another very important point in this. We don't know what we're eating, and that's, for
No,
me, is huge, because we don't. When you ferment stuff, or when you're buying real things, you know exactly what goes inside. When you buy processed food, like we know what xanthan gum is, because
yeah,
I use it. I use it for the bar. I use
yeah,
it
we
to
use it for
create
that.
very good textures. Molecular cuisine is based on, for instance, xanthan.
Yeah,
They saw lecithin. I can say many of those, but what is inside, we don't actually know. we know what the effect is if you combine into a soup or if you combine into a fruit leather. But really, maybe those things are probably bad for you, especially if eaten daily. Because for me, this is something that it's like exercising, right? If you exercise once a week, it's one thing, but if you exercise every day a little bit, you will see a huge difference.
A huge
In
difference.
a bad side, if you eat processed food every day without even knowing that you do it, right? Let's say you eat ketchup every day, or let's say you eat mayonnaise every day.
Yeah,
Or anything,
you just
which is
have to look in your cupboard, and they're full of processed food.
and this everyday eating of things that you don't know will actually affect your lifestyle really, and your health. I have another question for you. How the Italian responded to the actual Italian, I would say obviously Italian because you live there, but
Yeah.
worldwide, the responded of this changing of people going from mass production to small producers and actually being very careful. And I do believe that the last year, with this pandemic, health, it's been highlighted like crazy.
Yeah, you just focused on the main point. People just stopped. They stopped working. They stopped running around. And they started again thinking, and they had more time to understand what they were eating, and they had more time to read. They had more time to inform themselves. And so what they started doing was looking at how the health is actually food based and not medicine, pharmaceutical drugs based. Okay, we they started focusing on what they putting inside and not just taking drugs to face the problem once the problem is there, but they started to understand what all the functional foods are to stay in a good health state and not getting to be sick and then taking drugs. So that was a very, very important thing, because people are looking more and more to functional food, and they look to local groceries, because from an economical point of view, they started seeing their neighbors, that the local people that have small grocery stores, a small restaurant, things like that, suffering from an economic
Absolutely.
point of view.
Absolutely.
So they wanted to go back to the community and saying, I will buy from you and not from a mega store, which I don't even know who is working inside and where does the food come from. So actually, we're downgrading a little bit the commerce
And
of,
I can
of
tell you
food.
that even in Canada, at least for what I've seen and what I'm seeing, it's a very similar process. People are really getting into the small producer, the farms, understanding, and I think knowledge on food is such an important thing, and knowledge in fermentation, common knowledge. It's one of the things that, for instance, you are preaching like crazy, and I will do exactly the same, or as much as you can. And whoever is listening, please do it. If you are a newer fermenter, get into and just share the voice, because it's not hard, right?
No, no, it's one of the safest and most easy ways of processing food. It's like cooking without fire, like Michael Pollan said. So it's a huge transformation. It's also sustainable from a ecological point of view, because you have a very little carbon footprint to do the transformation, because you don't need heat or things like that. It's just the microbes that will transform the food for you, and it will have a longer life, because it actually it elongates the shelf life of a product, a vegetable. If you ferment a vegetable, you have from few days of keeping it in the fridge fresh, will be able to keep it for months. So this is actually how fermentation started. It was a conservation method, of course. This is very well known that fermentation started as conservation, but then we gave it up because pasteurization was working the same, but it was cheaper, faster, and more
Available.
easier and more standardizable. I don't know, that's an
Yeah,
invented word or
doesn't
not.
matter. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter, man. Everybody will have to accept our accent for the next
And
hour.
for food industry. So actually, how the food industry, how food went in a direction that was okay and better for food industry, but not for people. if you understand what I mean. So we
Absolutely.
went in pasteurization and canned food, because so the food industry could actually have better profits and so on. And but now we have to switch the thing, and the food is for the people and not for
Absolutely.
the for
It's really been a reflection of this society. You know, we like easy things, and I do think that, have easy things applied. It could be a good thing for people. It could, your life is easier, and make your life easier in certain aspect. It's a great opportunity, but there are some aspects that nothing should be, easified, like simple. And food is one of those, because it's a daily taking of your body. So as people should take care about the incomes and the outcomes, and and the assets and liabilities and your economy and your family economy, I believe that this is something that we should really all together. And here, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm right. Our industry, especially chefs, now bartenders, much more, we are really into this, like
flavor.
the flavor aid, but second, fermentation. I think fermentation is becoming, I was actually a guest on a podcast of Sean Soul, which is a great friend of mine. He's running an amazing podcast about actually our industry, very specific. And what he told me was like, why did you get into fermentation? And my first answer that came to my mind is like, I have a new library.
Yeah,
I got new books. Why?
exactly.
Because your strawberry doesn't taste anymore the same strawberry. It tastes different. If you actually make kombucha with strawberry, you will get much more tannin. That's a beautiful interchanging and transformation of actually each ingredient that you thought that it will taste that way.
Exactly. That is what, when I said flavor, I meant exactly what you just said, what you just explained, that fermentation gives you new horizon of flavors, and it allows you to have an identity, also a gastronomic identity that is unique to you and different from all the others. Because actually what you can do with fermentation and combine it with all the ingredients, etc., you will get some ingredients that are not available on the market. So it's just yours. And
Absolutely.
so you can have an identity on your bar, on your restaurant, on your cocktail bar, and actually people will come back to your place because they know they will find the kind of drinks or dishes that you make, the food that you prepare or the drinks that you prepare, you mix, they will be able to find it only at your place, nowhere else.
And I'll back you up in this, Flavio, because my bar, Mother Cocktail Bar, I have some people coming back many times. We have a menu that changes once a week. We have three sections. It's called the Tomorrow section. And we use fermentation to basically create different layers of flavors on a very simple classic. And I give it to everybody an example. We lacto fermented plums, and we did a lacto fermented, we actually call the salted Negroni, because obviously lacto fermentation
You
imbibes
need
salt
so
in there. So you actually create this beautiful concoction, which is balance between the bitterness of a Negroni and the sour, the savory note and the sweet note of the lacto fermented plums. And this is just a little example. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Who do you think in Italy and worldwide is actually leading the world of fermentation, in kind of not just a restaurant, but also people like people in the middle, like people that they're not chefs, but they study fermentation and they push fermentation for everyone.
So, of course, we have to mention the Noma and the people that have been working there, because it's a very important, actually, column of fermented food in the world.
Absolutely.
And but not because they're not like them, or there's something better or worse. It's simply I find it a slightly different approach. I think that Rich Shea and Jeremy Omansky, the authors from Koji Alchemy,
Which
are
is a great
doing,
book, by the way.
which is one of the most innovative and most advanced books in fermentation at all. I mean,
I
in
totally
the world,
agree.
because they took something strongly traditional like koji, and traditional in Japan. They took it out of its tradition, they studied it, and they started applying the thing to everything.
And they kind of told you, look, once you have the, the actual structure of it, you can do it using cling film. You can use a oven. You can use, that's not just if you don't have the wood box of cedar,
Yeah.
you will never make koji in your life. And this is something that, it breaks through a lot of mental steps that people do. And myself, I was the first, when I saw koji in the first YouTube channel and you say about koji, I'm like, oh my God, really? I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. How do I do that? You expect you to asking so many questions to yourself that, unfortunately, because we're living in a very comfortable society, 1,000 years ago, you will ask those questions because those were the only question to how do I preserve 75 kilos of cabbage? That's all I've got.
Yeah, exactly. And I need it for all winter.
And I got 5 kids.
Yeah.
You have to think about that. Like, fortunately and unfortunately, the society of today is like, oh my God, this is too much. I'm not going to do it. So those chefs, and this we're going back to that my first question. Those chefs, they actually made a book that was like, look, if you run a kitchen, you can do this, and it's pretty simple.
But they went to another even level, another step. That is, they brought fermentation to really to community, saying, let's talk about it. They have the approach of, I'm not teaching you, I'm just sharing what I discovered, and this is what I like the most, because they really increase the movement about fermentation. Of course, we know that all started with people like Sandor Katz that started all the movement, and he's probably the father of the worldwide fermentation movement, and he kept that kind of approach, sharing knowledge and making people understand fermented food is not rotten or dangerous. It's something completely different. So he's number one for, I think, for everybody.
In his book, Art of Fermentation, for instance, is so good because he tells you, I'm not going to give you a recipe. I'm just going to tell you that I do this and you should try. And if you make a mistake, happens, and do it again, just be safe on some certain, kind of circumstances. But all the rest is like his ingredients, it's time, and it's your time.
So as he started the fermentation culture, but from a more traditional point of view, because he really built up an international, worldwide culture about traditional fermented food. What actually Rich did, what actually you find in Koji Alchemy is what is my personal approach that I share a lot, is understanding what's happening, the science that is happening inside that transformation, the fermented food, and trying to apply the principles to any kind of a food. So I'm taking out the principles, the scientific principles from a traditional food that probably a lot of people were doing exactly the same way just because they were told to do it exactly the same way. So they went through the process from a biological biochemistry point of view, and then they tried to apply the thing to a completely new set of food. And what is funny is that probably if you go back to if they go to Japan and they tell traditional people, sake breweries or miso, traditional artisanal miso producer, what actually they're doing with koji,
they will get crazy.
Yeah, probably they would not even accept it.
No, but we are from the same country. And do you think your grandmother, if you would go there and say, I think you have a different way to make a tomato sauce, she will look at you, she will listen to you. She would just say, get out of my kitchen. This is my kitchen. I'll make my own tomato sauce. But to be honest, and this is the thing, the nephews of those people, they probably will. If you in Japan and you run a kitchen and you make tons of koji, and you got to produce it in a way that your restaurant is very busy, and you got to be there because there's a request and demand of consumers, you will see that those people will start to probably use the cedar box only. They probably will for some, extra premium koji, but the rest, it needs to be efficient. And also it's good, right? It's not that
Yeah.
the product isn't as good as the other one.
No, absolutely. But this is a very good point about the grandmas, our grandmas, about ragu and things like that. Is you first of all, you cannot do innovation if you don't start from the traditions and if you don't understand traditional food.
Absolutely.
And this is also the what we have, the story of the culture of fermented food in the world right now. Is we started with the wild fermentation, the art of fermentation, those books that were like telling people we forgot something. Let's go back to our roots. And that was very, very important. From there are new books now, new people that are starting to get in from there to innovation and development of new techniques. But the problem is that very young chef, very young people that are approaching food industry, they have to understand they cannot jump the traditional part. They will have to start back and learn how to do traditional fermented food very, very, very good.
Yeah.
So they have to learn first that, and then, because of course what they see is already a person that has already went through that road, that actually already did.
I do also believe that people like you will be the beautiful kind of bridge between those two, because you are a biologist, so an old person will believe you because you have the knowledge behind your talks. A chef, maybe, he knows the principles and he goes and execute it. People like you that they study, fermentation from the real kind of aspect of, be a scientist. It immediately gives you credibility.
Yeah, and also it gives you the tools to make people understand better what's happening. You don't just tell them put a bit of salt in your cabbage and wait for it. You tell them you put some salt because of this and that, and how much salt you have to measure the salt, because so you can replicate time to time the same procedures and things like that. So it's getting really interesting. And also I think the bread makers are going through that, also studying a lot. I have a famous bread, I call it a bread maker, but because I don't know probably the correct English word in Italy, that is Aurora from Le Polveri in Milan. That is a very famous un forno. How you call that in English? I don't remember.
Which is a baker. It's a bakery.
The baker, yeah,
we call it a bakery.
And she has a master degree, I think even a PhD in chemistry.
Amazing.
So that's funny, because
bread means her bread is phenomenal then, because she does
it everything with sourdough. Everything is spontaneous wild fermentation. So it's very, very, but she applies precision to everything she does because she has a chemistry background. So that's the people I think are changing the world of fermentation.
Okay, and I totally believe it, because actually the connection went a bit out. So if you want to just repeat, this girl from, where's she from again?
Milano.
Yes.
And the bread, the bakery is called Le Polveri. That means the dusts.
Absolutely. And she does everything based on sourdough. So everything is spontaneous.
Everything.
Using any yeast at all.
No, at all. Zero. You cannot even talk about it with her, because she will just
I'm gonna write this down, because I'm gonna look into this. I'm actually, seeing COVID started. I'm actually started to make my own bread, and we sold more than 170 loaves since pandemic. And that's all made with this hand, with my sourdough starters. And there's also another thing, the sourdough craze started as soon as the pandemic hit, right? Everybody, or like all the people that like cooking, they're like, all right, now is my time to make bread at home. Also, because can I tell you something? And this is very personal. Did you make bread too, right? I've seen some.
This is something Yeah, but this is something very, very strange. People don't understand that because I'm in fermentation, I do all kind of fermentation, but I'm not quite into sourdough
Okay,
bread and making bread because it's you have to study all of that. I mean, I do it sometimes for myself, but I don't have the knowledge to teach or talk about it to other people. I listen.
absolutely.
I still listen because fermentation is so wide topic that you cannot know everything about all the topics. So in my personal experience, I'm most focused on fermented vegetables, and I'm just fond of koji and alternative applications of koji. But
There was a
because
great post. There was a great post of yours about Kefir Grains,
yeah,
and this
yeah,
is something.
and
And this is
wild
something.
fermentation in general, of course.
And this is something I asked you actually last time, and I was like, I really don't understand how it's possible that water kefir is not popular as Pepsi or Sprite. And you obviously had a great answer to me and tell me, well, I'm gonna actually leave it to you, so at least you can tell me again. But
Yeah,
the beauty is because those things are delicious. Like when
but
you taste something and you're like, oh my god, why this is not famous?
yeah, we go back to the food industry problem. It's not totally complete. How you say? How we say?
Sellable,
Yeah, by the food industry. So because it's alive, you cannot just put it there and stock it and sell it through the year. You just have to go and produce it and sell it and produce it again and sell it because it will last a few days. It's not so stable because it's alive.
of course.
That's the cool
But
thing.
I do believe, I thought about the answer and I was like, I do actually think that if the communities they actually build together and, you can go and buy water kefir in 2, 3, 4 locations and, small markets. So then we might have a chance because we
Yes,
have,
but
we have actually people making it for you. And, the most important thing that the cost prices won't be, $10 or 10 euros a bottle because that will be, the price is high, far too high to buy. But also, like water kefir, you can produce a lot because you technically change the grains every 40 hours. And if you do a large
you
amount
can
of,
produce a lot, but you have to produce it locally, and this is why it's so strong because it will not give the chance to a big company to produce it for all the United States, but
of course,
you will need a galaxy of small producers all over the place that produce locally. This is the strength of fermented food, unpasteurized, of
of
course,
course,
fermented food. And this is what's happening also in United States about kombucha. Kombucha brewers are support local kombucha brewers buy unpasteurized kombucha from a local producer because kombucha cannot travel across all the country to
no,
get from the east to the west coast. But if you buy kombucha, real kombucha, it has to be brewed locally. So you will actually support a local brewer. And we
absolutely,
go back to from globalization to local production.
which is amazing. What are you doing to help Italy to ferment more? What you are, I heard that you have a couple of projects on. Um, Please
Yeah,
tell us about it because I was mind blowing about everything you said last 2 weeks ago, and I can't wait. I really can't. I really can't wait to share this because I believe what you guys have in mind.
yeah,
And
we are working a lot on it, and I will send you some designs, some renders that we're actually making. So well, of course my main job is I have a small company that does fermented vegetables, unpasteurized fermented vegetables. Everything is wild fermented. We don't use commercial starters for
beautiful.
nothing, and we have to distribute it on cold line, 4 to 8 degrees Celsius. And I always say Celsius because Fahrenheit, I don't remember how much it is.
After
Fridge.
four
Let's say
after four
fridge.
years in Canada, still don't. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
it's fridge. It has to be distributed on fridge because we don't pasteurize it. So we're contributing a lot in Italy in making people get in touch with fermented vegetable, unpasteurized living fermented vegetables, so that they don't have to start it on their own at home, but they can also buy it and try to understand. Of course, we promote self production at home because for us it's very, very important. Otherwise, Fermentalista project would not be running anymore. But we strongly believe in both things. And the other things we're actually working on at the moment is Fermentation Box, that where you will be able to upload fermentation profiles. So the box is actually something that will control temperature, humidity, and a fan ventilation in your box. But what you do is actually you upload in this box via Bluetooth, or we don't know exactly how, we still didn't decide, a profile. So the box actually will control the profile of the temperature and humidity.
So let's say this week I'm gonna make kombucha, this week I'm gonna make ginger beer, or this week I'm gonna make sauerkraut, and this week I'm gonna make koji. So you have different temperature. It's basically a chamber, right?
It's a chamber.
You have a chamber with different temperature, a reverse refrigerator.
Exactly, absolutely. But where do you get the profiles? The cool thing is that you will be able to download the profiles from a community, a web-based community, where people are able to, you will be able to build your profile with graphical user interface of course, on the website. So you decide to build up your profile, to upload it on your fermentation box because you developed a specific bread recipe, and then it works. And you say, guys, I just did this kind of bread with this kind of flour and so on, and I built up a fermentation profile, and you upload it on the community. And people from all over the world, I hope one day, probably, they can download.
Yes, of course. Well, I think I also tell you, man. I think a lot of people will be very interested in this. Because we are going to a very different phase of our lives. We had our generation has just had the first biggest struggle that we ever had, and people are thinking in a different way now. Some people, they don't think anymore, or they just think, this is all gone and this is the end, blah, blah. But other people, they're actually thinking that this is the beginning of, a new thinking. And I'm one of those, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. So from a positive point of view, we have to think that people will start thinking again and actually will have to reconsider their actions and what they're doing, and getting more aware. Awareness, I think, will be the world after the pandemic. It will be the most important
and just to come back to the chamber, which is, I'm super interested. So you will have basically different programs with different ingredients, and you will be part of a community which you will explain exactly what to do. So how the hazard of making things explode and all this kind of, because people are getting worried about, like, this is probably what I've seen from I remember when they told me I'm gonna open a bar based on fermentation, they went, but fermentation stinks. That was the first thing. And I was like, you really think about that? Like, I was not thinking about that, because apart kombuchas, which is, yes, of course, it's got a little funky smell, acidic, there's a bit of acetic acid there. But if not, fermentation doesn't really stink. Especially vegetables, lacto fermentation doesn't stink at all.
It doesn't stink at all. You just have to tell people, look, fermented food are, for example, yogurt. Do you think yogurt stinks? No. So
and it's delicious when you make your own. Even some
bread.
Exactly.
Bread stinks. It doesn't stink. It's a fermented food.
And it's the best smell that you can get.
Yeah, it's a food transformed by microbes. That is the definition of fermented food. Not fermentation, that it's something a little bit different in biochemistry, but fermented food are food that are transformed by microbes. That is the definition. So it's a wide range of stuff. And through this community, we hope to actually give possibility to the people to share profiles about fermentation profiles, temperature, humidity, and so on. Share them, you can download it, and what we will offer as a selling point, of course, it will be the box that will be able to accept the profiles and actually control the parameters.
Are you guys thinking already about sizes, or do you gonna do different sizes? Gonna be one
Mm,
size, one
we
standard?
we are gonna start with a small size that is a home scale size that you just put on the counter on in your kitchen. So it will be more or less half a meter for
Freezer style. Let's say a small
more
freezer.
more little, 1.5 microwaves, let's say.
Beauty, beauty.
Because you can put 2 loaves of bread, for example. You can put a couple of kilogram, for example, of fermented vegetables, a jar of kombucha, and things like that. So actually, what you will do is actually you have a home production actually for your family, and then we will think about
Of course.
restaurant size, like an oven, so
Beauty,
it could be
beauty,
put in a restaurant. Who knows? We don't
beauty.
know. We're still working on the project.
And you know, any of this information, just share it with me. For instance, I will, you know, share to the Canadian bartending
Right.
slash chef
Yes.
community over here. Also, and I'm gonna let you go very soon because I know you're super busy today. Um,
No, don't worry. I have an alarm somewhere,
it's okay. That just
but
if
it's not mine. It comes from outside,
if
from
it's
because
not yours, doesn't matter.
no, because it's hot days, and I have now it's almost summer, and I have the windows open, so I can
Amazing.
feel from I can hear from the neighbors that there's something an alarm going, but it's not
Summer
mine.
just came to Canada too. Last weekend was amazing, and it was the first one. And actually, I gotta say, there were a lot of people in the park. My bar is next to Trinity Bellwood Park, which is it's probably the youngest park in Toronto, and also
No,
the biggest central park in Toronto. And you know, as much as we gotta still be careful and not, but it was a pleasure to see youth.
of course.
Sometimes this is beautiful, and this is actually another comes. It's totally a random question, but just came out of my mind. Um, young people and fermentation.
Young
If I
people in
tell you,
fermentation,
what's the relationship
they
between
have.
young people and fermentation?
They have, because they have the same principles. Today, young people have strong principles about sustainability, about ecological aspects, about being sustainable for the earth, and waste reduction, and all this kind of principles. You find them in fermented food, because fermentation allows you to actually reduce food waste, because you can reuse things that you would throw away otherwise, and it's quite interesting from that point of view. And it's transforming the food for a longer shelf life, so you have less waste, food waste, reduction of the food waste. And for example, you will be able also to do a kind of but this is a smaller part, I think, a very peculiar flavors and things like that, that are more like for younger people, that are more massified, and they look more at having an identity right now, local identity. So that I think that young people are a lot more aware and are a lot more concerned about where are we going from a
Absolutely,
society point of view, sustainability, especially carbon footprint and things like that.
love
Where
it.
does my food come from, and fermentation has this that will allow them, to give them a tool to get a lot more near to the to actually what is sustainable food.
Absolutely, a lot of answers. Question: I've seen that you doing some courses. What are those courses? Because are you trying? What you try with those courses? Are you trying to help more our industry, or it's for anybody? Also, what
Uh,
are those courses in general?
Of course, it started with bartenders and chefs, because they were the most interested, and they were the very first people that got actually attracted by fermentation, because it started with professionals, not with common people, of course. Like all the time, it starts with professional. But now I'm getting more and more people that want to actually know about fermentation, how to do it at home. And I had to diversify a little bit my channels, my communication channels for the courses. So I have professional courses that are a bit more intense, a bit more hard, let's say like that. But I'm doing a lot since this year. I'm doing a lot of common people. I don't know how other to say it.
No. I say people that are not really fermenting daily.
Exactly.
So practitioners is probably the best.
Passionate about fermentation. And I'm also doing some initiatives that I was not able to do a couple of years ago with associations, with cultural centers, and so on. I go there for free and just we talk one night or 2 nights, free webinars and things like that. And because there's a lot of people that want to know, but they just want to understand what are we talking about. So they're not like, yeah, I'm going to do a 6 weeks course about
spending 7 hours a day fermenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I'm doing a lot of more initiatives that are actually free and with a lot of cultural centers, and not now at the moment, but I was starting last year, and there are some things that I just left there that I have to go back as soon as we will be able to go back to do some meetings and things like that.
The courses are pre-recorded and you will follow online step by step what you have to do.
Yeah, the ones that are online, yeah. Usually I have pre-recorded, because one thing at the beginning of the pandemic is it was that there were all these Zoom, Facebook courses that were really, really hard to follow because of the quality of the images and of the sound. So I invested a bit of my life in recording high standard lessons with a professional cameraman and a professional studio. And we did this course with professionals, and we had to do like a film, like a documentary, like everything. And now it's on this new website that we called it Fermenters Academy, and it will host also other courses from other fermenters,
amazing,
bread and so on. We already recorded a new course.
All Italians, or is actually global?
No, at the moment, because I want to keep classes very, very tiny classes, because another thing is when you're online, the problem is getting with people, getting, the chatting, talking, and we have to go through forums or we direct messages and so on. So it's not so easy.
Absolutely.
And so I have to keep the classes very tiny classes, maximum 15 people that will do a course for 2 months, because they have to do at home the things they learn.
Absolutely.
And then they go back and they post their pictures of what they're doing. And
so
then
just to make all the people that are listening understanding, I sign up for the course. When I sign up for the course, do we have like a matter of time, 15 days to complete this course, or?
No. You have a lot of weeks, and every week I actually I upload a new lesson.
Beauty.
And I don't give them all the material, in once, because I want to make them follow a logical track. So I force them week by week to just to see. They can see only the new lesson from week to week, and they can start making things only if they first did the previous lesson, so they can understand the basics.
Beauty.
I'm a bit naughty from that point.
No, but I do think, I was, for instance, I was my personal, and this is not about fermentation, it's totally a different thing. I was assigned for master class, so that was before pandemic. But to be honest, some of the stuff that I learned there is actually very useful still now. Thomas Keller, for instance, I love that guy, and I love his cooking. It's so simple, but so accurate. But after a while, I lost a bit of interest, to be honest, because there was so much going on that you basically watching TV.
Yeah, it's a sort of
It's not that
entertainment.
it's not that you dig into it and you're like, I'm gonna do every single recipes. And bear in mind, I don't blame the guys that make masterclass. I blame
No, no,
myself. I blame myself because sometimes, when you're watching something, there's so many things going on. Oh, Alicia Keys is doing songwriting. Oh, this
yeah.
guy is doing this and this guy. So what happened that you can't do everything? It's impossible. As much as you
No,
think you are.
and
And so
and the
what
thing,
you end up doing is to watch
exactly.
masterclass and just, oh, you have seen that.
Yeah,
And
it's like Netflix.
exactly. And you're like, wait a second. I never had Netflix account because I don't watch television, or I do watch sometimes. Like really,
Yeah,
I probably watched 4 series in all my whole life,
yeah.
and I'm very proud of it because I don't spend time in front of the TV,
No,
and if I do, it's because I really like something.
really, you really want it. Yeah,
But at the same time, watching something to learn, it's not the same thing they actually learn it. And
no,
schedule, if you think about when you work in a restaurant, right, you do staging, and staging
exactly.
is not that you're just watching them working.
No, 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 no. You have to, but that's the thing. I wanted also that you could interact with me. So it's not just the videos are there and you look at them when you want. You have to do the things, and we have actually to talk. You have to tell me what you're doing, and then we catch up sometimes with some Zoom lives, but just to do some question and answers about what they're doing. And there is this forum where everybody just writes about what are the problems that they're encountering, and people start also answering, I have the same problem, or Flavio, where I can get this jar, I don't understand when to buy it, or things like that. So
Perfect.
it's very, very interactive. But to be very interactive, I need very small classes, maximum 15
Absolutely.
people. And that is why it's only in Italian, because I don't have a wide range of, I really, not because I don't want to seem proud of it in the bad way, but I really have always the courses are sold out because I have very small classes and I want to follow them very, very well. So I don't
I
have a lot
also I
of
also have another I also have
space.
another beliefs about that. Your courses are probably amazing, so people really want to do it. That's why they're probably sold out. Sometimes
Yeah,
you don't know how many people they can reach 15 people to have a course about something. But when the voice is someone that it's very experienced about a matter, I think people that really understand that there's a lot of value coming through that.
yeah,
That
yeah.
being said, the value of home fermentation on it's even much bigger because and this is my personal story. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, or at least a practitioner, and I never had weight problems because I'm eating and living fermentation for the last 5 years of my life, and my diet it's pretty perfect. I don't know, and obviously I don't want to say like mine and me and whatever, but those things that
No, but you
they
share.
really work. They really work, and we should apply for those courses just because at least we're learning something that is so important for us.
Exactly, exactly. And of course, then the course is quite long. It's a 1.5 month, almost 2 months. So I'm able to open classes only once every
The other
one
one
and
is
a half
finished.
month. Yeah, and so that is why also I have small. I'm always a little bit. I have more requests than I can offer, but I didn't want to go just like, yeah, I'm going to do bigger
Of
and bigger
course.
classes, more and more people.
Yeah, it's so funny because for us, for instance, we do it's called Mother Live, and they basically, because we can't open the bar, we do
Yeah,
live sessions with big
yeah,
groups. I'm talking this times, sometimes 140 people, 77 people, but it's a totally it's a night out. They going to the bar, but they can't go to the bar, so the bartenders go to their homes.
yeah, of course.
And it's a totally different thing. And trust me, man, you don't understand how much I'm preaching fermentation during those courses. And even if they want to just drink and get drunk and have fun and share that, I was like, you should ferment home. And they go, and they really I was like, man, I'm just having a cocktail. I was like, yeah, but see, that cocktail is really good for a reason.
And you know why?
I'm
Do you
putting
know where
fermentation
alcohol
inside
comes
that.
from? Alcohol comes from fermentation. Yeah.
Okay, listen. Last time that was one of the highlights that I had in my mind, and I will repeat this because I actually put you in the same level of Stevie Wonder. I don't know if you remember that, and if you
Yeah,
don't, I'm gonna be very upset. I'm joking.
yeah, no, I do remember that.
Basically, because what you're trying to do, which is amazing, it's speaking a very hard language to understand, but simplify it for everybody's needs. And that's what, for instance, Stevie Wonder did, because his music knowledge was insane. But some of the songs, they're so simple and they're so romantic, which I believe fermentation is so romantic.
Yeah, it is.
We were speaking
It
about
is.
sourdough before, and baking. Trust me, for me, was creating food from scratch.
Exactly.
It's a huge thing. Like, it's really big because you basically make food. Like, nowadays in 2021, tell me how many people make food from scratch apart bakers or professionals. But like
Yeah.
at home, you don't, and
No,
it's
you
such a
don't.
such a beautiful feeling. So if you have a message, or if you would like to say something to people that they never ferment before and they would like to start fermenting, what would be yours?
That actually you are part of an ecosystem. You are a walking, a marching ecosystem, because you're made basically of microbes. And through fermentation, you will understand actually how this whole world of microbes can actually change the textures, the flavors, and everything, and how important. And visualizing something that you cannot see, microbes, you cannot see microbes, visualizing what they're able to do, you will understand better how important they could be for your health and for yourself, because then you start giving something, material, something that
Absolutely.
exists. So fermentation actually is the showing the power of life in food. And we are is going back to the thing that food is life. And actually fermentation puts together perfectly these things.
Amazing. We should finish like this. This is
Yeah,
like, you are the
we
sunshine
can
of my
finish like
life.
that.
So you're
Yeah,
speaking about Stevie
I was
Wonder. It's like, you
the
are
mic
the
drop
sunshine
thing.
of my life. You just dropped it. Man, what to say? It was an honor of 2 weeks ago having you for an hour and just chatting about it. And it was an honor to have you here. What you're doing for the world of fermentation is amazing. Don't stop. I was a fan even before to meet you and to speak to you, just because at Fermentalista, if everybody didn't go and see this channel, the Instagram, just go and see, because there's a lot going on. I love the ginger bug, by the way, that post, and how
Yeah,
you actually made a ginger bug, because all our ginger beer that we do is all from bugs. And when people try, I was like, oh, this is really good. How do you get this kind of flavors? Like, well, I grow my own bug. And when you grow, oh, it's a bug? No, it's not a bug. It's actually sugar and ginger and water. But
yeah,
you can call it bug, because you actually create a little thing that goes live
yeah.
and makes the ginger beer much better. But really, man, I wish anything that you do about fermentation will be followed, because people are listening, people are watching, and when people do good things with a base of knowledge behind, they will be considered, they will be listened. And we are with you,
Yeah.
like at least Mothers with you, and I'm sure a lot of people from Toronto too.
Thanks. Well, it was fantastic chat with you, and we could replicate sometime in the future. Who knows?
I think I really want to do an Instagram live with you, because
Okay,
we have very good followers in there, and I got very small community at Mother, that they all people, like what we said, that they really care about where they're getting food and how they eat, and that's why they come to the bar to experience. They know that we got good staff for them, and they kind of understanding this process that we really believe into. Flavio, have a great day. Say ciao to
you
all
too.
of my love Italy. Have a
I
good
will.
one. Kisses to the family, and keep fermenting as always. Okay.
Always keep fermenting.
Bye. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.